All right. I'm going to talk about cultivating the company culture you desperately need. And I just read that slide word for word. So that's so important on so many levels. But here's my concern. Let's get to this. Sometimes, especially with the nature of these businesses here, when I'm talking about company culture, some people might think, the corporate office environment, pizza Wednesdays, uh, Gene Fridays, and cubicles. That's what that's the place where you want to really make sure there's a good company culture. It's the only place that's really applicable. Or maybe you're thinking, yeah, company culture is important, but in the trades it's different. We've got some work to do. We don't have time for that. Or we really don't even see each other that often. Kind of like this illustration here. It's kind of like, hey, Joe, it's good to see you for about 5 minutes last week. But we really don't have much time and really in an environment where we can build company culture. And that's really, that's not the case. In fact, I understand, with most contractors or service businesses, you don't hang around a group of people every day. It could be a little bit different, and really sometimes can even feel lonely for some employees. I know that that was something we were working through about 6 months, maybe a year now, with Surface Renew, just a tub refinishing company, and we had to talk about, hey, some of these employees, I mean, they're refinishing tubs alone, 8 hours a day. Like, we've got to make sure we've grabbed the bull by the horns here and make them feel like they're a part of something. Make them feel like, this is where they want to be. And so, all the more, this is so important. You've got to make the few interactions you have count. And I know not every one of you have, an employee sitting alone 8 hours a day on a job site, but some of you do. And it's so important to make the few interactions you have count, even if it's just the Monday morning meeting or your check-in on a Wednesday afternoon, or popping in there. You've got to make it count, because whether you like it or not, if you're not leading the culture, then your employees will. And if they're leading the culture, it's not the kind of culture you want. It's going to be the negative Nancy's who are going to bring the culture down. It's going to be the complaints. Unless you have an amazing leader in there who's really taken charge, well, they're probably going to end up leaving pretty quickly too, because they're going to be tired of having to drag everybody else along. So it's so important. Now, why does this really matter? Why does company culture matter at all? It's applicable. Why does it matter? So a strong company culture is going to attract and retain your best employees. It's going to increase productivity. It's going to encourage people to innovate. Hey, we're not going to maybe not create the world's next I don't know, material for some, like, maybe not some crazy innovation, but I'm talking like, hey, maybe there's a better way to get on the schedule here, so I know I better know how to go about these kinds of jobs. Who knows? Just they're doing these things, but not not with the mind of a zombie, but with the mind of someone who's looking for a better way to do it. And we all know the difference between those people. And a strong company culture is going to create a sense of purpose for your team. So people want to feel a part of a team. They want to feel a part of bigger something than themselves. They want to feel that the environment is challenging them and helping them grow their skills and even personal development. Crazy story. I actually reached out to my current boss, Tim Redmond, twice. Why? Well, I knew him outside of work. Well, I wasn't working for him at the time. He was one of my teachers at Victory Bible College, and he was honestly he was one of the most inspiring people that I had met at the time. And I was like, I want to work for this guy. He rejected me once. I reached out a couple times on email, but whatever. It was just wasn't the right time. And I made it happen again. I was like, you know what? Let me reach out again. And I saw there was an Indeed ad. And all that to say is, like, why would someone try and do this? I like to think I'm not like the bottom tier of employees. I don't know if really we have any of those here, but bottom line, inspiring leadership makes a difference. I felt challenged. I felt like this is an environment I want to be around. Spoiler alert, he finally hired me at some point. So actually, I'm still begging him to keep me, but okay. So, who here, I want to hear a couple people here. I know that I think this might be the biggest group we've ever had at a group call before. So there may be a lot of you trying to talk over each other with sarcasm, but who here has worked for just an awful organization in the past? You were an employee, and I'm not talking, let's not talk crap about old bosses, at least without saying, don't say their name. We don't need that. But, who knows what it's like to work for just very poor leadership, no motivation, nobody really caring about, no appreciation. I want to hear at least one of you. Go for it. Has anyone ever had a job before? You can raise your hand. There we go. I almost saw Travis hesitate there for a second, so I was worried. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, well, if you all had amazing jobs, does anyone really know what it's like to have
I'll share one.
Yeah.
All right. So was it hypothetically going to be the most amazing job? I was a horse wrangler on a dude ranch, right? So like
Wow.
super cool job. It was actually awesome, great experience. The boss was archaic, Stone Age, awful. We worked 6 days a week. On your seventh day, your day off, you were expected to work 6 hours on your day off. So we worked six days a week, 14 hours a day. And on your seventh day, you were allowed to build fencing. So that was your day off. On your day off, we were allowed to build fencing. And it was so archaic, it was awful. The team spirit was terrible. Like nobody liked being there, even though it was an amazing setting, Continental Divide, Rockies, cool clients that you got to guide up the mountainside, do trout fishing with and all that type of stuff. But because of the boss, he made it a terrible experience for everybody. Everybody was overworked, grumpy, angry about the situation. So it was just a awful experience from that standpoint, even though I absolutely loved it because I love horses. I love the whole experience, that client relationship on guided tours and stuff. So I still love the experience.
How disappointing. Like, what a cool opportunity, like once of a lifetime. And it's like, gosh dang it, if you would just have any care for employees or company culture, this would be my dream job. I would never
I would have stayed there for years.
Right.
So, instead I stayed for 3 months.
Yeah, exactly, Chris. It sounds like you're like, I loved it, despite the leadership, despite the situation, the environment, because that sounds amazing. Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I could go on the couple experiences. I've worked for different environments, and I'm telling you that it really, really sucks to work for someone who doesn't know how to bring the best out of people, who's in fact the opposite, pointing out what's not going well, and that's the only ever time you talk to your boss. So don't do that. I want to give you 4 actionable steps that we could start implementing in your business this week. So this is going to be so important because you don't develop a great, strong company culture without actually taking time to think about your company culture. It doesn't happen on accident. And that's what I really want everybody to get, listening and watching this call here today, is that you've got to be intentional. It's not going to happen by accident. If you let it drift, it's going to be a raft drifting, into the waterfall. You're not going to make it. So we want to build a company culture that's really going to serve you and your employees. So number one, we've got to recognize and value each individual. Quote I absolutely love by Richard Branson here. He says, I've always believed that the way you treat employees is the way they will treat your customers, and that people flourish when they are praised. If a lot of you having employees, do service work and talk to clients and customers and homeowners and so forth, and you want them to better treat them sometimes. That's well, how are you treating your employees? Are you giving them the fuel and the motivation and the appreciation that they want to go the extra mile and really take care of their employees, the clients they're serving? Appreciation really is the fuel to any relationship. And this isn't just business. It's a little asterisk there. Any relationship. In fact, appreciation is a cheat code in relationships. It's almost too easy. When appreciation is common practice with your employees will feel more energized and valued. They go home feeling good about themselves. They're going to tell their spouse, hey, you know that so-and-so told me that today? They're like, oh, really? Well, that's really nice. Wow, that's good job. Keep it up. Well, how do you do it? You can just tell them something as simple as, hey, I noticed today that you blank, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Something as simple as that. I noticed you came in with a good attitude, even though it was a rough day today. I appreciate that. That goes so far. The best way to get someone to do anything again is appreciate them for it. So you've got to be specific and intentional and genuine. One of my pet peeves is, if you said this to me, it's okay. I still love you. One of my pet peeves is, thank you for everything. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Tell me something specific. You can say thank you for something so small. I prefer that than everything, because everything means nothing. That's not very intentional. That's big. So, if it's difficult to find anything to appreciate at all, and you're really, really struggling with that, then we haven't exercised our ability to look for it. Then we're not doing it enough. So we've got to get those lens of negativity off and start looking for it. Just start noticing positive attitudes, actions, or even if 99% of the things they did was awful, but there's 1% you could acknowledge them for. Do it. I promise you won't regret it. What action are we going to take? Well, during team meetings, that's a good place to do it. It's not the only place, but I want to give at least one core action, something that you can start doing now. Your next team meeting, every single time, acknowledge something positive about someone in the meeting. I promise I'm not frozen here. Who's the employee of the month? That's like one of the worst ideas ever. Like, why do we have a freaking employee of the month when you have a company of 200 employees? You only want to acknowledge one of them once a month. Like, how ridiculous is that? I mean, now if you've ever been employee of the month, I'm sure you deserved it, but I've never been, so that's why I hate it. So no, it's you've got to take the time. Like, why only take one time a month to appreciate someone? No, do it every opportunity you can. And then, so that's a great time and place to do it. Just acknowledge something positive about someone or something they've done or whatever that might be, once every team meeting. And don't try to think about it before the meeting. In the moment, it might be clunky if you haven't worked that muscle out very much. But bottom line, public appreciation, it's like a coronation ceremony. It feels good. Has anyone watched a coronation ceremony before? They have the crown and everyone's like, yes, and there's music and there's angels singing and Well, I've never actually watched one, but that's what I imagine it's like. So that it feels good. We've got to take the time to do that. All right. Number 2 here. We have got to challenge our employees. An environment where you're not feeling challenged is one that's not committed to your growth. What does challenged mean? Well, give them a task that maybe initially they weren't able to handle, or maybe you want to, give them a shot, or encourage them to take bigger steps. Say, hey, I know at this point your skill level is here, but I'd like to see you maybe over here by the end of next quarter, or next year, or even, hey, 3 years down the road, I'd like to see you where you're able to get your journeyman's or master license, whatever's applicable in that moment. Just you're here to help them with their development. You ask them about their goals, ask them for permission to follow up on their goals next time you talk to them. Bottom line, your best employees are seeking to get even better at their job, develop their skills, and if they're not getting that from you, they're going to find it somewhere else. They need to feel that you have a culture that truly values their development. You got to train your employees. Build this into your schedule. Train them to be the best, to handle difficult situations. And train them on the basics as well. You've got to take time to train them, but bake it into your process. Whether it's a once a week meeting, or hands-on training, or maybe it's as things come up, maybe a challenge comes up, you don't just come in and save the day and do it all yourself. You really make sure to walk them through, hey, next time this happens, this is how you're going to handle this. Anybody have any kind of training baked into your schedule right now? This is a risky question here because of this right here. I know I didn't set you up for success very well, but well, we over here at Redmond Growth, we're constantly training. There's always feedback, but at least once a week we have a time and a place where we're able to ask questions and say, hey, so and so told me they wanted to be profitable. We've never done. No, I'm just kidding. Unique situations. A lot of the times where I'm sure you've heard, if you've been a client for any amount of time for Redmond Growth, you may have heard, hey, let me ask the team and get back to you on that. That's when they are asking the team, everyone is learning from that. You've got to have this built into your system. So I remember the first few times I actually had, a client that, believe it or not, someone was actually being very difficult and unfair. And I tried to pull Tim Redmond, come in and save the day. Hey, please just take care of this, deal with this difficult situation. He said, hey, you can have the conversation instead, but here's what you can say and here's how you can do it. At some point, he started releasing the leash. He wanted to challenge me. And even though it was very uncomfortable for me, deep down, I was like, this is what I needed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can testify to this. And this was all like Tim had a method to his madness. Tim knew that as the business owner, if he wanted to build a business that's not completely dependent upon him, he had to empower his employees to be able to handle the things that we were dependent upon him to solve. And so at some point, when we kept coming to him saying, hey, I have this client issue, or I'm encountering this difficult situation, I can't get a client to do blank, or this client is upset or whatever. If you came to him, his response would be, what would you suggest we do? Or what have you already tried? How would you like to handle this situation? And so by asking those questions, it was empowering us to solve it on our own. And then he would just give feedback. And now Tim, I see him maybe twice a week. if not less. He doesn't have to be so involved. He's built a system that's empowered his team to handle the things. I get so sick of hearing clients say, well, Nicole, I can't have a schedule because if I can't answer the guy's question any time of day, work's going to stop. They just won't be able to do it. And what I challenge that is, wow, it sounds like we have very poor systems and training and empowerment to our team. And if we don't solve that, you will always live in chaos. The business will always be built around you. And so that's why I know that company culture, whatever, who cares? You've got to build it unless you want to be the main person in your business forever.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. And that's a very well put here. I know that there are times where um, maybe a client might or somebody may complain, hey, I'm not doing, or I wish my employees would take more charge. I wish they would solve this on their own sometimes. Well, the follow-up question is always, um, do, are you empowering them to do so? Have you let them know? Have you clearly defined the boundaries? In these situations, you don't need to call me. You got this. But there are situations where they need to reach out to you, and you're working on that, and you're developing them, and that's okay. But just we've got to make sure that I'm the kind of guy here where I don't like to step past the boundaries unless they're clearly defined. Unless I know I can do something. So it's really important to define that for your employees. But here's a great action. Ask them about their goals, professional, personal, and ask yourself how you can challenge them to reach those goals. Show them you can help them in their development. Show them you're truly invested in their personal success and that working for you is the place to achieve that. And if you're really struggling with this, just talk to your coach about it, or it's a little nuanced. I understand that, but just start having those conversations. You've got to just start having those conversations, and you're going to get better at it. That's just one of those things. Step number 3 here, action 3. We've got to create opportunities for your team to bond. I think Riley was looking at that and it's like, yes, I've done this so many times. This is what we do at noon on Fridays. We're holding hands. We're around a fire pit, and I'm actually the one singing. I'm the one playing that guitar. Okay, how can you create a close-knit team if nobody likes each other? It's time for everyone to sit down in a circle, sing songs, and play spin the bottle. Okay, maybe not that. So, this is a joke here. This is never going to happen. In fact, I mean, if you do that, then you've got much more than company culture. You've got a religion. So, just unless you're, I won't say it. So, you've got to create actual opportunities, though, on a serious note, for your team to get to know each other more, and not just in the everyday work environment. Have an occasional event outside of work, or even if it's during work hours, you can have times when it's not just about running to the next project. If all we're ever doing is running around, no one on the team will ever build relationships, especially in a situation where, hey, we really don't see each other that much. Maybe just a Monday morning for an hour, and then a couple check-ins here or there. Well, this is all the more you've got to be intentional with every interaction. You've got to have that appreciation. You've got to introduce people. I mean, I know some of you, it's like, well, I got 2 employees. I mean, Joe knows Jason. That's not an issue. Well, try to strike a conversation between the both of them. Some people just don't know how to make some friends and be friendly. Be the one to help build that. Help create a close-knit team.
A great
Here's
place to start with this is if you're like, okay, I'm going to put it into my schedule to do team training once a week. You know, we're going to have an hour dedicated on Monday mornings or Friday lunchtime, whatever. Get some donuts. Get some donuts and some sausage rolls for that 1 hour training. Spend the first 10, 15 minutes just asking them how their week was, what their weekend plans are, what they did that weekend. You know, ask them, you know, get to know them, spark that, you know, and then it's not going to be so awkward when you bring up something like, hey guys, on, you know, Friday, we're not going to do any jobs after 3. And I would love to grill out for you guys. If you guys want to, you know, come over, we'll have a little barbecue. You can bring the family that evening. You know, Arnold's Plumbing is one of the best examples. I have somebody who's consistently building the company culture. They have team training every Friday morning that he brings in donuts and sausage rolls for his office gals. Twice a month, he brings them in. Well, they have the donuts too on Fridays, but for them specifically, he'll do lunch, you know, bring in lunch twice a month just to touch base with them and give them some appreciation. And then once a year, which this is a kind of a cool thing, it might be more of an Oklahoma thing, but he takes all of his techs on a float trip. They literally get a cabin and they float the river, and then they grill out that night, stay that night, they head home that morning, you know, and that's kind of a cheap way of having, you know, a really fun thing that people look forward to all year round. I mean, those techs are so excited for that, you know, once a year. And so don't wait for Christmas. You know, even if it's, hey, you know, I'm going to bring the grill to the shop today for lunch. I'm going to kick everybody lunch. We don't have any calls in between noon and 2. You know, come back into the shop. You can start small, you know, and build up.
absolutely. I talked about Surface Renew earlier in this call, and kind of circling back to that is Bob, one of the owners here at Surface Renew, told me, he said, I want to build a closer knit community, closer knit team here. And we were talking about it for a bit, and then he's like, hey, let's let this be a standing item on this agenda here, and ask me once a month about how we're doing on that. Every first week of the month. Hey, that's today. Ask me, hey, how are we doing on this? How are we building a close-knit team? And his answer is, hey, actually last month we did this, or, oh yeah, we haven't done anything here in a bit. You know, it's a reminder. You know, he cares enough about it that he wants to be reminded, and it's so important to go ahead and do that. But here's my action here for this one. It's, you've got to schedule occasional events outside of work, or at the very least, even if that's like a lot of logistics to think about, you know, and it's just not your thing. I get it. I'm kind of that way. Just at the very least, just block out the first part of your team meeting, or just get used to some personal small talk. Get used to asking, you know, how's the family, but really mean it. Ask some genuine questions. You know, talk about personal wins. You know, talk just if you're not doing it, nobody else will. You know, engage in actual conversation before your meeting starts. It's make that a normal thing. That's how you begin creating an environment where people are going to enjoy being around each other. Number 4. Are we ready for number 4? If you are, just do this here. Oh yeah, there we go. All right. Lead by example. Number 4 is lead by example. Amazing quote by someone who is pretty smart. Setting an example is not the main means of influencing others. It is the only means. It is the only way to influence others. It's everyone's heard it. You know, children will listen to what they listen or do what their parents do, not do what their parents say. So, and that's absolutely true. You know, it's this you've got to lead by example on this. This is the most important point, yet the most difficult one. Why did I cover it last? Well, I wanted to keep the juiciest points for those who stuck it out till the end. That's my little secret here. So you made it. Congratulations. All right. What does it really mean though? So if you're wanting to build a more positive environment, then maybe you got to be the one to make sure you're talking positive about everybody else when you're one-on-one with everybody else. You know, I when I walk up to Riley to complain about my coworker, he's like, hey, let's stay positive here. But no, I'm still here to I'm you're not that you can't hear anything that's concerning. You can still hear them out, but let's make sure it's around how are we solving this and not just let's complain about everybody. That's one of the things I absolutely love about the environment here. I have been in an environment where people just complain about each other, and I personally tried to work it out, and it's like they just didn't care and didn't even want to, and let's just go back to whining about life. It's not great. It's horrible. People will feel it. It's a very negative environment. So all that to say is we've got to lead by example. There's no other way. Check yourself. Examine. You've got to be intentional with the way you do everything. You get to set the bar wherever you want. And at the end of the day, it's the details. It's the way that we address everybody. It's the way that we interact with everybody. You've got to do it. I know it's a little bit more vague here as far as leading by example, but just know that you will always reproduce who you are.
I think,
forgot.
sorry I
Yeah,
keep
go on.
interrupting you, Rudy, but this is such good
No,
stuff.
I want you to. I need to breathe for a second.
But I think a great place to start with that when you're like, Nicole, I kind of grew up in the environment of like, I didn't need to be motivated. I didn't need my boss to know me. I just did my work. Like, I don't know why my team is different. One, culture does change. The way people are changing, you can probably blame our generation for that, but we want somebody to actually give a crap about us. And so it's more so, that's why you don't see people staying at jobs for years and years and years. Back in the day, our parents would stay at the same job for their whole careers, and nowadays that's not always like that. And I think part of it is because there is no company culture. They don't feel like somebody cares about them. And that has become more and more important. And like Rudy said, if you start showing that to your team, they're going to start showing that to your company and to your customers. They know you care, so they're going to care more. And I think a great way to start leading by example is when you're frustrated with your team, when you're Nicole, I can't get them to do home safety inspections. I can't get them to show up on time. I can't get them to be in uniform. Or this one guy, I just can't get him to follow, or I can't get him to do this. Instead of thinking about, oh, that's so frustrating. I just, don't know what to do. Instead of just being frustrated and thinking how they need to change, I would challenge yourself and say, how can I help make that change for them? What am I not doing as a leader to get them to that level, to get them to make that change? Is it that I haven't really given them tangible direction, that I don't do ongoing training? Is it that I haven't been super clear? Telling somebody to do better is not going to get them to do better. I've got to get clear and tangible with it. When you find yourself in those frustrating moments with your employees or your subcontractors, I would reflect on yourself first and say, what have I done and what have I not done to fix this problem and to empower them? Instead of thinking that they're the problem, a great way to lead by example is thinking they're not the problem. The problem is the problem, and it's my job as their boss to come alongside them and say, how are we going to solve this problem together? Here's the issue we're running into. We're allies in solving this. Help me solve this with you.
That was amazing. Absolutely true. Very well said. A quote that illustrates a lot of this very well is people may teach what they know, but they reproduce what they are. world famous speaker and author. He also wrote the book 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, which, a little shout out to Tim. He's actually featured in that book. So pick that up if you want to. Use code ROOD2024. That's not a real promo code. Don't use that. Okay. So it really all boils down to you. You set the standard, the team will follow it. Inspire your team, bring up your core values. If there are core values, if they're not, just think of something you actually care about. Just don't talk about and core value. And it better not be integrity, honesty, and quality. Anything other than that. Everyone says that. Okay, it can be that if you really do care about it, and I gotta believe you. So you've got to inspire your team. You know, some of you might be thinking, whoa, hey, Jonathan, come on, pump the brakes here for a second. I just wanted to run a business and not be an employee. I don't want to be the next Tony Robbins. I get it. You don't have to be Tony Robbins. Just be real with your employees. Authenticity is required of everyone if you want to have great relationships in the business, with your employees, if you want to build a positive work environment that your best employees want to hang out in. Now, if this is something that's really awkward for you, I don't really know how to start, and because it's just because you never do it. Well, start small and start now. You're going to get better at it. Take some time. Just, how do I do that? Well, just bring up maybe one important core value in one meeting and just talk about what that really means to you, and talk about a story or two about how that's affected the way you work. Hey guys, I want to just bring up something you may already heard a lot about, and your parents have heard a lot about. This is quotations here. I'm not actually saying this to everybody. Hey, work ethic is one of my core values, and here's why. And just talk about a story that actually meant a lot to you, and why that came about that way. Or maybe you don't have a big story. Just start. You've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start now. When you challenge your employees to be better, when you actually give them opportunities to get to know each other, when you're recognizing people and appreciating them, and you're leading by example, you are setting yourself up to create a strong company culture that people actually want to hang around. Here's a thought I really want to wrap this up with, that I hope it just sears your brain, sears your memory. There's a competitor out there with a better company culture. You better get your act together, or everyone's going to go work for them. Let that sit. Everyone's going to want to leave and say, well, these people do these things this way, and that sounds so much better. Yeah, well, they pay them so much more. Well, control what you can right now. And if you can have the best environment with the worst pay, then at least have the best environment. I'm not saying you have the worst pay, but if you do, well, then let that work in your favor. But there are competitors out there who have a better, intentional, strong work company culture, and you've got to make sure you're the one with everyone's talking about you. When I worked at Sam's Club many years ago, everyone talked about, man, Costco, people are so much nicer there. They just kept on talking about how much better it was there. And I was like, it's probably true, because this place is a dump. No, I love Sam's Club. I'm just being a little funny here, but I have memberships to both. You should definitely get that. It pays for itself. It's amazing, especially with kids, but even without. All right. Normally we go into breakout rooms here, but I'm thinking, I wanted to ask a couple questions, and if the coaches wanted to jump in on one or two things, they absolutely can. But I wanted to ask two questions here. Let's just start with question number one. Here, let me stop sharing my screen here. Which of the points that we've already discussed here you feel like, hey, you know what? I may have not intentionally blocked out time in my schedule and been thinking about this 24/7, but I feel like I've actually been doing a decent job in blank, and let me just reiterate some of those. And it could be different from what we talked about, but talked about, challenging your employees, talked about recognizing employees, talked about creating opportunities to bond, and just leading by example. I want to hear just at least a couple. Just here's maybe one area I feel like, maybe there isn't a whole lot of room for improvement, maybe a little bit, but I've actually been doing a decent job at this. Go for it. I'm listening. Is it none of them? I was trying to give some credit to some people. I was trying to show some appreciation here, but all right. If it's not that,
I feel like
I want to. Yeah, Mike, go for it.
I feel like I do a pretty good job. I text the people that I work with, not weekly, but I do text the people and just tell them one good thing that I do appreciate about them, just kind of out of the blue. No other there's no like side agenda or anything. I do try to make them feel good about working here, because I do realize that there's a lot of competition out there, and they could work for other people. I also feel like I do bring them food a lot, like to the job sites. I feel like that's the best time to just sit down on the break and talk to the guys, get them a burger. It doesn't cost that much. I'm going to eat anyways, so might as well eat with them. And it's good to just rub shoulders with everybody, and so they know that I do appreciate them. And that's, to me, if somebody brought me lunch, I would feel appreciated. So
Food. It's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing for your employees. If you're trying to build relationships with people who would either refer you out or subcontract you out, we call that Dream 100 work. Nobody's mad at a solicitor that brings you donuts. Like, food is a powerful thing. Don't underestimate it.
No, that's great. And keep on doing that. Even if you turn to text into even just a quick call right at the, I guess you don't want to interrupt them, but if it's applicable, even a quick call. Hey, what did you need, Mike? Well, I actually just want to say thanks. Appreciate your positive attitude and for knocking things out here the last few weeks. I know it's been pretty crazy. Oh, of course, thanks. Bye. That's it. No agenda, nothing else. That is so important. Which of these areas do one of you feel like, this is the area I feel like maybe I have the most room for improvement, that we've talked about. So recognizing, valuing each individual, challenging employees, team bonding opportunities, and leading by example. Riley, what's your go-to? I'm going to put you on the spot.
So personally, I don't have employees. I have brought some people in, like as subcontractors for stuff. I'm trying to think of maybe, because it's a little tough not having employees to reflect on maybe what hasn't worked or what I need some improvement on. Certainly, since I don't have employees myself, I haven't, set up opportunities to, for like, I guess, morale activities and, those days. But I certainly am, looking this year to get to the point where I do have employees. So I think where all this is applicable, and, maybe I can do some preemptive planning to make sure, as I move forward into the phase of my business where I do have employees, to keep all these in the forefront of, my weekly, monthly, quarterly schedule, just to make sure that as I build this base set of employees, we do start out with a good culture versus, 6 months in, like, oh, wow, I scrambled to get people and, it's kind of messy and maybe there's some tension. I know that didn't really answer your question, but since I don't have employees, I guess the best way I can say is, as a business owner, I think what I can use improvement on is making sure that this is something that I am proactive about implementing from the get-go, to build a good foundation on with culture, instead of have to, take steps backwards to try to repair something that maybe started out a little broken, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think people can get particularly lazy with company culture, especially when you have 1 or 2 employees, because you're like, well, we're all close, we're all just kind of who we are and what we do, and we're always around each other, or it's easy to kind of reason your way out of that. Well, then when you get that 3rd and 4th one, suddenly you've never taken the reps for it, you've never really thought about it, and it becomes difficult to bring back where it needs to go, but
Yeah.
absolutely still very applicable.
Yeah, and I would say, Riley, I love your attitude of it, of like, hey, I don't have an employees right now, but I'm still taking what I can from this, because as probably Chris and Mike and Freddie here can testify to, is finding good craftsmen is hard. Finding, people who have the technical skills and also is a good person and good employee. Like, we're in a hiring shortage as a nation, and then you guys are already in an industry that already had a hiring shortage, so it's like double whammy. And so finding those good people is hard. And so when you find them, we've make sure that they want to stick around. And that doesn't mean that we're letting them just do whatever they want, but it means that we've created an environment where they feel really appreciated, and why would they ever want to leave? And so I think if you already have that in mind and have those systems established before hiring, it's going to allow you to build a really good team from the get-go.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, I wanted to throw this out there because I know that last time we talked a while back, you were the networking king. I mean, you're like, I get work just because I say hi to people. What what do you think is either your strong suit or weakness here as far as all this? What comes to mind?
I innately love people. Like, it just, like, I love people. I'm energized by being around people. Like, I just thrive in the group setting. I know not everybody's like that, and obviously it comes.
Could relate, Chris. I wish I could.
So I genuinely love people just in generally. Now that obviously that also has a negative consequence too, because you wear your heart on the sleeve and you get let down a lot, and you trust people way too much and they take advantage of you, and stuff like that too, that comes with the genuinely just love being with people, and it's just in my blood to help people, I guess. Like, I'm always trying to solve the problem. Like, what can I do? And I always want to have a solution for whatever they are. And so we've created a business that kind of gives a lot of opportunity. Since we are general contracting, we do a lot of different types of projects. Whatever it is, we can probably tackle it. Anything related to your home, residential, we can probably tackle it. I got a contact for that. I got a guy on the team or a subcontractor that works for me a lot, or whatever, that I know very well, and just love people. I love doing lunch with the guys and bringing them burgers. Like, I love doing that. And usually it's tacos and Mexican and stuff like that, and them laughing at me when I try too spicy of jalapeno chilies and stuff like that. They're like, try this. Haha, boss. We got you.
That.
But yeah, I love people, and I love being with them and doing that.
Well, that's probably why you've never had to do a ton of advertising, is because that's reflective in your team and the quality of work you do, and your customers are going to see that that's the company culture you have as well, and it's going to get your team to want to refer you, get your customers to want to refer you. And so these principles that we're learning here today, it's going to be reflective in every aspect of your business. So I know that you guys have busy days, and so we're going to close out this call here. I know we've only got a handful of us, but I think we could still do a big 3, 2, 1 growth. If I could get everybody to unmute for me, we're going to do, Rudy, I'll let you lead it. Rudy leads it for our group coaching or meetings. He leads it during our weekly meeting. And so Rudy, I'm going to let you lead it here.
All right, go ahead and unmute. We're going to say growth on 3. That's 1, 2, 3. Growth!
Go!
There we
Thanks,
go. That
guys.
was the loudest we've ever had. All right. See you later.